I got to tell you up front, this is a fun review. I really enjoy doing this review because it's not just another speaker review. No, it's got some really cool aspects. But yes, it's a review of the Wharfedale EVO 5.2 three-way stand mount speaker. Yeah, those are pretty rare. And that mid-range driver is not a cone mid-range driver. No, it's a 2-inch soft dome driver. Yeah. So we got some cool stuff to talk about in this review. But I will also mention that the 5.2 is part of the new EVO 5 series that includes a smaller 2-way stand mount speaker, a center channel speaker, and 2 larger, obviously, tower speakers. But I'm just focusing on the 5.2 because you know what? It's the coolest one of all, in my opinion. And speaking of cool, there will be an Audiophiliac viewer system of the day later on in today's show. And also, I'm going to do comparisons between the EVO 5.2 and the Buchardt S400 II and the Zu DW6 tower speaker. So stick around to later to see what goes down with those comparisons. As for the speaker itself, like I said, it's a 3-way. Starting at the top, it has a folded ribbon tweeter, an air motion transformer. It's a bit larger than average. It's 30 by 70 millimeters or 1.8 by 2.75 inches tall. So yeah, it's bigger than most. That 2-inch dome, yeah, Wharfedale has used those before, and when I reviewed in 2020 the Wharfedale EVO 4.3 tower speaker, I had a hint of that. But this dome is slightly different than the previous generation because it has improved damping material behind the dome. And that's also true for the air motion transformer, improved damping material to, quiet that back wave of the driver. The 5.9-inch woofer is woven Kevlar, and not woven carbon fiber, but no, woven Kevlar for some reason. I don't know what the difference is, and sonically why one sounds different and or better than the other, but this one is woven Kevlar. Drivers are not off-the-shelf units. They are designed in-house by Wharfedale. It is, by the way, a ported design, but you will not see a port on the front of the speaker or the rear of the speaker. No, the port is on the bottom of the speaker. So the bottom of the speaker is sort of raised off of its own platform. So it has like, let's say, an internal plinth. It's really hard to take pictures of. But basically the port is at the bottom of the cabinet, and then there's maybe like 1.5 inches space between the bottom of the cabinet and the bottom metal plate. And then the airflow is directed out from the center around the pillars of the speaker cabinet itself. I wish they provided a diagram of that, but they didn't. So I can just tell you about it as awkwardly as I just did. Oh, and looking at the back of the speaker, there is a single set of binding posts. The previous generation, the 4 series EVO, they all had bi-wire connectors. This one is a single set. And you know what? I'm fine with that. The cabinet features layers of chipboard and MDF. And the cabinet is strengthened with internal bracing. And the EVO 5.2 comes with black cloth grills, though, as typical of me, I always prefer to listen without the grills. The EVO 5 series speakers are available in 4 finishes. The walnut that I have here, which is really beautiful. I don't think it's real walnut, but I think it's vinyl, but if it's vinyl, it's really good vinyl. There's a new finish option, gray, in addition to black and white. And they're not shiny and they're not dull. They're sort of a satiny finish. Very, very, very nice. Very tasteful. Of course, there are optional steel stands that match the bottom of the speaker's curve, so you won't find that in anybody else's stand, but it's here. The price of the speakers in all 4 finishes is $1,299 a pair. The optional stands sell for $500 a pair. Here are the complete specifications, and I'll run down some of the important ones. 88 dB sensitivity, I would call that average. The impedance is 4 ohms, but does drop down to 3.2 ohms, meaning you really, really need to use an amplifier that's happy and capable of driving 4 ohm loads. And the claimed frequency response is 44 hertz plus or minus 3 dB, and that's definitely lower than average for a speaker of this size. I call this a mid-size stand mount speaker. I did, by the way, with playing tones through the speaker, I did confirm that that number is real. I was definitely getting bass down to 40 hertz at this end of the room. So this speaker definitely can make some bass. Is it subwoofer bass? No, it's not. It's not as deep as a subwoofer, but for a stand mount speaker, the bass is surprisingly powerful. You know, I used 2 very different sounding amps over the course of this review. The Schiit AGEAR 2, 50 watts a channel into 4 ohms, which is what these speakers are, and also the Mytek Brooklyn amp, 300 watts a channel into 4 ohms. 2 really different sounding amps. I'll tell you right up front, most of my listening tests were done with the AGEAR. Just was the better sounding amp, but I wanted to use the more powerful amp when I played music really loud, which is a very small part of this review. To get started, I was using these Neil Young with Crazy Horse outtakes from really early days, as the name of the album implies. So they're loose, but not sloppy. But the beauty of these recordings is that they're, let's say, underproduced. It feels like it's just the basic guys laying down tracks. And it was fantastic. And there was a real power to the sound of these recordings, the way these were mixed. So you just feel like these guys are taking charge, man. They are there to play. And these speakers belted it out big time. They like to party with this Neil Young record. You know, I'm a big fan of J.J. Blair's podcast. He's a recording engineer, mixing engineer. He's been around the block a couple of times. And he did sort of, let's say, a breakdown of the Grateful Dead at the Fillmore East 1971 of this song, Hard to Handle. And Bob Weir, he's talking about Bob Weir's rhythm guitar playing on this track. And I was like so intrigued. I said, oh, I have that album. I got to go listen to it. And I listened to it. It's like, yeah, JJ is right. It's really, really something. The band just has this, even for the Dead, they were just this machine. They were just like interlocking rhythms. It was fantastic. I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it. So anyway, yes, I played it thanks to J.J. Blair, and these speakers communicated that really, really well. That feel, that vibe of the Fillmore East itself, which I can't say I went there every day, but I was there enough to know what that theater was, like a 2,500 seat theater, what it sounded like. And it's in this recording. And then, deep in the zone with the Dead at the Fillmore East in 1971, I thought, aha, this is the perfect time to do the comparison, the first comparison in this review with the EVO versus the Zu DW6, full-size tower speaker. Is that fair? Well, not exactly. It would have been fair if I still had the Zu DW6, the stand-mount version, but I didn't have that speaker, so I couldn't do it. I used the DW6, and yet, even with that, guess what? The EVO 5.2 had more weight, more solidity, more oomph to the sound, and the DW6 was the leaner sounding speaker, even though it was considerably larger. So sometimes appearances, as they say, can be deceiving. I will say that the DW6 did a better job putting me in the space, hearing the ambience on the quieter parts in between songs and stuff. I could hear more of the Fillmore ambience with the DW6 than I did with the EVO 5.2. But overall, I just preferred the presentation of the EVO 5.2 at quiet and mid-loud levels. But when I turned it up louder, you know, mid-80s and higher, the balance shifted, and then I preferred the sound of the DW6 over the 5.2. And the DW6 had a wider swing between soft and loud dynamics. I wanted to take a break from comparisons for a second and just listen to the 5.2 on its own, and I pulled out this Elvis Costello Almost Blue. Now, this is in the 80s. When it came out, it was his country record. When it came out, I didn't like it. I thought, wait a minute, that's not what Elvis does. I want him to, no. Elvis had designs far beyond just being a rock and roller. And he was very sincere about doing this country record. He used a great producer. The pedal steel guitar is gorgeous. Strings. It's Elvis in a different zone. And it works. I didn't realize it back then, but I realize it now. It's a great record. And I got to say, the EVOs put me in that zone. It was really beautiful. I was really picking up on Elvis's sincerity about doing this music that he loved in his own way. So, thank you, Elvis, for doing the right thing. Next up, I wanted to exercise the EVO 5.2's woofers. They're only 5.9 inches. How deep can they go? But I use tones, but I also mostly use music, starting with this one. And this is music from South Africa in the late 60s. Wow. Because the speakers did go low, and they were funky. They just didn't go deep like one note bass. No, they were very tuneful bass, very pitch-accurate bass, and had texture to it. And rhythm, most importantly, rhythm. And I was getting all that from these speakers, which really did surprise me that they had that ability of not just going low, but being very, very tuneful at the same time. Meaning it wasn't thick or muddy or bloated. No, the bass was very well controlled. Next, I wanted to play a straight audiophile recording. And my definition of audiophile recording means it's an attempt to capture the sound of the musicians playing in a space, not change things and manipulate things in post-production, all that stuff. No, take basically an oral portrait of the session itself. And that's what's going down here. It was a Chesky record session. It's 2004, recorded live to 2-track in a church here in Brooklyn. I was present. I wasn't working at that session. And I'm playing it over the EVO 5.2. And I am marveling at how much of that sound was coming back to me. David's on piano. There's percussion, there's bass, there's saxophone. There's a lot going on, and the EVO was getting it pretty well. But I will say, in relatively recent memory, when I reviewed the Axis L1 two-way stand mount speaker, that one just had more of that like hyper realism, that texture, that detail, that incredible clarity. Yes, I would say the Axis L1 could do a better job if that's what you're looking for and your budget can stretch. But anyway, it's my job just to report what's going down, and that's what was going down in that. The EVO 5.2 does a very reasonable job of doing that kind of decoding of space and time. Not as good as something like the Axis L1. So to continue, I wanted to move on to this comparison between the EVO 5.2 and the Buchardt S400 II, two-way stand mount speaker, $2,400 a pair, not including the stands. Buchardt is a small speaker, but it does have a passive radiator on its backside, so it can actually make some bottom end. It wasn't quite as deep as the EVO, but it did a pretty reasonable job, and overall sounded better when I played it really loud. And this was when I was using, yes, the Mytek Brooklyn amplifier, because I wanted to not think about power limitations. So that was kind of not what I saw coming, that the smaller speaker, the S400 Mark II, could actually play louder with ease. And that kind of tipped the scales in some ways for the Buchardt. But in other ways, yeah, the EVO 5.2 played at more moderate levels. It did sound really, it just sounds like a great speaker for $1,299 a pair. Because that's what it is. And I keep thinking about it being a more expensive speaker than it really is, because it does certain things really well. But the one thing it can't do is push really, really hard. That seems to, no, it's not happy being pushed really hard. All right, so we're going to do these. So Steve, what do you really think of the Wharfedale EVO 5.2 three-way stand mount speaker? As I said, I keep thinking of it as a more expensive speaker than it actually is. So at the price, $1,299, it offers a lot in terms of build quality and sound quality for the money. And if you're the type of person that doesn't play music loud, I would strongly recommend it. It definitely gets 2 thumbs up from me. And also it looks really nice, and I love that the way the stand integrates visually with the speaker. You know, it's a very well thought out, considered design from a very established speaker company. Wharfedale has a history that goes way back. I'll put the date over here, but it's one of the oldest speaker companies in the world. So anyway, let's move on to, you know it, you love it, the Audiophiliac viewer system of the day. Nicholas lives in Singapore, and this is his system. The amplifier is an AudioNote Cobra. It's an integrated, currently running Gold Lion Genelex KT77 tubes. The speakers are AudioNote ANK-LX with the original stands. The streamer is a Goldnote DS10 paired with the PSU-10 EVO, that's the dedicated external power supply. Phono stage is also Goldnote, it's a PH10. Now the turntable is a Project Debut Pro with an Audiophile 2M Blue moving magnet. And for cables and accessories, it's Furatech, Riga, and also the power cords, plus an isoacoustic platform for the turntable. Thank you, Nicholas. Hey guys, thanks for hanging in there. My name is Steve Guttenberg. I am the Audiophiliac. This is my YouTube channel. Thank you for watching this far into the video. If you like what I'm doing here on the channel, please consider subscribing. And if you really want to make a commitment, please consider joining my Patreon. You can join for a couple of bucks a month, up to $50 or even $100 a month. And at the top 2 tiers, you and I will have a one-on-one conversation every month at the beginning of the month. So consider that. Yes, I really do hope to see you back here again very, very soon. Bye-bye.